Welcome, everybody.
The Logan Power Show. The Logan Power Show. The Logan Power Show.
He is phenomenal.
The Logan Power Show.
We're here to empower you and impact
The Logan Power Show. The Logan Power Show.
you. It'll be a great show.
He is phenomenal. Hey everybody, welcome to the Logan Powell Show. It's me, your host, Calvin Logan. Definitely. So hey, we're having some fun here. My name is Calvin Logan, the Logan Powell Show. We nationwide, worldwide. We love y'all. Hey everybody, welcome to the Logan Power Show. It's me, your host, Calvin Logan, live here at Refreshing Word Church here in North Charleston, South Carolina. Well, if you see me sweat on my brow, that's because the Lord has been moving all day, every day. And I got with me, he is a fighter. He is a man who's about veterans. He's a game changer, has his own radio show, corporation. But he's going to talk about what he has going with Aspire Revenue, the one on Mr. Boyds, Stough. How you doing, sir?
Fine, sir. How you doing?
Good. How's everything?
It's pretty good, actually.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. See, I dropped
happy
my
to
car, being a little clumsy, but I'm good, though. I'm good. Well, tell us more about who is Mr. Boyds, Stough?
You know, you and I kind of hit it off on social media, and I know you're a veteran. I'm a veteran as well. I was Air Force Special Operations out of Herbert Field, Florida, for about 4 years. Prior to moving to Charleston, and moved here as a reservist over at Charleston Air Force Base, and in that time began exploring some additional opportunities, right? Some alternatives, being that I was a reservist, and then I really had some spare time on my hands. And so I looked into applying to law school. I got into law school, and then I started a small business building streaming radio stations with a friend of mine, Brad Cooper. And for a couple of years, that's what we did. And I started law school. So I'm right now I'm at the point where I'm finishing up law school. Unfortunately, lost Brad Cooper to a car accident about 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And with that, obviously, a change in the business direction, which has kind of landed me where I am. So I am primarily, I'll say by day, I'm a revenue consultant. So.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. All right. So you have a company, Aspire Revenue. Talk more about that.
So Aspire Revenue came about because I basically just began lending my problem-solving expertise to small businesses and a couple nonprofits, and they did pretty well on the back of it. I didn't profit from that.
Got it.
And it was suggested to me by an older friend of mine who had been a tax consultant. He said, "Listen, you know, if you're giving your advice away, and it's good advice, you know, you should be charging for it." This is a while back.
Sure.
And so I formally incorporated as Aspire Revenue, and have been doing that ever since. And so I work with small businesses and nonprofits to help them generate recurring revenue. Especially with nonprofits, it's kind of an alien concept. So I've really enjoyed bringing a different philosophy to nonprofits, helping them change their mindset so that they're, rather than obligations before abilities, they're abilities before obligations. So we afford them the ability to do the thing they need to do. And so it's been very rewarding.
Okay, got it. So you're pretty much just taking the tools you've been given, and now you are off in the running, just pretty much just helping others.
Right.
Now you have a big concern, since we are veterans ourselves. Myself in the Marine Corps first before in the Air Force, and just got out this year. So
awesome.
So for yourself, I know you're big into veterans and things that are going on. Talk more about that. I know you were big on social media. You had some concerns that you wanted to see some change done. And I know with Aspire revenue is one thing, but you had some concerns about what's going on with veterans as well.
Yeah, I was approached by a guy named Tom Barth. He's actually a resident of Goose Creek. He actually lives around here. He and I met the first time at Breck's Steakhouse, actually. And he told me he was real angry. And he has a small nonprofit called Gifting Warriors. And you can go to giftingwarriors.org and check that out. And he said, you know, listen, I'm tired of getting basically the hand from the VA, all right? He was tired of stonewalling. He doesn't feel like he can get anywhere, and he kind of felt that they were apathetic. And I can tell you, he's right. Okay, I'm technically a disabled vet. I have back problems. I've been in the VA system. I've had to have a procedure done that was done, by the way, incorrectly at the VA. I understand what it's like to wait for treatment. I had to go through Congressman Sanford to get treatment through the VA. So I know that these are problems, that they really exist. He was really particularly concerned with one thing. Tom was concerned with the mental health issues. You know, it's a big deal. PTSD is a big deal. Veteran suicide is a big deal. But he spat out a number that really just took me back. 22 veterans a day, on average, commit suicide.
Wow.
I mean, that's really almost unbelievable, but it's true. 22 veterans a day, on average, are committing suicide, and we have so many things that go on in our culture that there's people dying, in so many unjust ways, but 22 a day, are there 22 of any other kind of people dying every day from pretty much a known reason? No, so I felt his concern, and he asked me to do one thing. He said, listen, I need you to talk to the VA, and I want the Veterans Crisis Line, which is a crisis line for veterans, I want it moved to the top of the homepage, because it doesn't make sense that it's at the bottom, and you got to look for it. And I was like, okay, well, that's not an unreasonable request.
Got it.
But when I looked into it, I realized, I try to think big picture, and you try to think about, rather than what would most people do, what's the right thing to do? What's really going to bring about the kind of change you want? Did he really just want the phone number moved to the top of the homepage, or does he want veterans to be aware? Well, obviously the question is, he really just wants veterans to be aware that there's help and how to get it.
Got it.
So then I asked myself, well, how is the VA marketing the Veterans Crisis Line?
Sure.
And it turns out they're spending an enormous amount of money marketing the Veterans Crisis Line by handing out small brochures, business cards left on tables at, restaurants and your automotive fix-it shop, just generally doing a terrible job like the VA does with everything else. And so I looked into what their budget was. The VA has a budget of $1.8 billion annually. $1.8 billion. I can't think of any company that couldn't get their stuff together for $1.8 billion.
I'll get it together.
But when you've got the resources,
Got it.
when you've got the means, obviously the only thing that's lacking is the will. Now, does it make sense for us to go to the VA and expect that the VA is going to suddenly develop the motivation to fix the problem? I mean, technically, they have had the resources to fix the problem.
Got it.
But they haven't taken action. So it's not a matter of they're not aware that it's a problem. It's that they just don't care enough. And so I said, well, the right thing to do isn't to go through the congressman. It's not to go through the government, because quite frankly, almost the worst thing you can do when you want to get anything done of any real importance is go through the government.
True.
But we've made a habit of that as a society, is going directly to the government, expecting change to result, and it just doesn't. And we keep pushing that button, expecting a different result. So what I said was, and I picked up my phone, we're talking about awareness, we're talking about an enormous amount of money. I'm trying to link awareness, create the requisite awareness, and motivate the VA. So I picked up my phone and I looked under emergency contacts, and just to be sure, because you never know, but the Veterans Crisis Line was not a default emergency contact option in cell phones. And I said, okay, well, simple enough. We'll start a petition and we'll ask T-Mobile, Verizon, Sprint, AT&T, Virgin Mobile USA. We'll ask all of those and more to add the Veterans Crisis Line as an emergency contact option.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Makes plenty sense.
So to wrap it up, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, the strategy is this. If it's already in the cell phone, well, then you don't need to spend all that money printing out those crappy business cards.
True.
Okay? You can take that same money, put operators on the other end of that line so they can help those veterans calling in.
Got it.
And if you raise access by raising awareness, what do you think is going to happen to the demand? Is it going to go up or down?
Demand's going to go up.
Is it going to go up a little bit, or is it going to go up a lot?
Skyrocket.
It's going to skyrocket. So the VA will only have one choice. I mean, it could do nothing, right? But then it has to look at the veterans in the eye, and it has to say, we don't care enough about you to actually correctly allocate our resources and energies to solving the problem. Or they can begin making the changes they know they need to make, because in this point, they really won't have an option. They're no longer in control of the demand side of the equation.
True. Got it. So for those that are watching out there, veterans are pretty much a must take care of. You think about military-wise, maybe about 5 million people serve this country out of 330 million. So pretty much about 8% of the people that live in the United States serve this country, which is astounding due to the fact there's 7 billion people. There's other countries, like for instance, China has over 100 million people that's in the military. So when you think about us as a freedom-fought country, you have to understand that if it wasn't for God, we pretty much be ran over. Me in the Marine Corps, I can tell you 1,001 times we was taught, if it's 1 on 10, that's a good fight. Pretty much. We got it in control. 1 on 10, we good. Got it all control. Now, that's kind of crazy. People say, like, 1 on 10, what, you a super fighter? That's how we was taught. Small in numbers. That's why, every branch of service has to play a big role. And, when they talk about the crisis line, what he's really meaning, in your cell phone, you have emergency calls that you can actually make. 911 is being one, 411 is being another. There's 511 available. These are things where people's automatically on the line. If you think about it, if 22 dedicated soldiers, Marines, Navy, just give an example, are taking their lives out, that's 7,000 plus people a year. So that's reducing the people that's defending this country. And a lot of it is mindset. I mean, I can tell you from personal experience, when a person has been deployed, when they've seen too much, or they're going through something, unless you have some kind of spiritual connection or you love my brother as much as you can without hiding it, they're going to need help. And I pray that everyone who is listening takes this to heart. It doesn't cost Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, AT&T, Virgin Mobile. It doesn't cost them money to really put it in the phone and make it mandated. It really just helps the person out. That's all it does. You think about it, every cell phone carrier is available on the basis. They have to have cell phone towers. You're not going to really find out where they're located at because of security measures, but it's there for a reason. So I highly recommend those to take Mr. Boyd's stuff seriously. And I can tell you from personal experience, I've seen some people take their lives because they've been frustrated. And it's sad. It's just real talk. A guy who didn't know too much in my unit took his life. Came back from Iraq, took his life. His wife had to bury her husband. He was very young. He had a child, but that's one life lost. And I don't care if you got $400,000 in life insurance policy. You cannot replace that father. I don't care what you say. If you gave him if anyone's been to a military funeral, I've done a lot of them. That's one of the saddest things in the world. 6-gun salute. It's sad.
The important thing, on the back of everything you're saying is there's real gravity to this. How many chances do you or I or anybody in the audience or anybody watching this, how many chances do you actually get to take a very clear, decisive action that is absolutely guaranteed to have the result you want it to. I mean, don't we wish everything in life was like that? Don't we wish that we could address racial strife issues in the same way? Don't we wish we could address spiritual issues in the same way? Doesn't every business and nonprofit wish that there was just one action they could take to solve their problem? They'd be silly not to take it, right? This is one of those actions. This is the only opportunity I've ever been aware of that is cost-free. Go to helptovets.com. That's helptovets.com. There's a petition there. Sign the petition. And you'll be glad to know that actually T-Mobile and Verizon have already talked to me. T-Mobile has already moved it up the ladder. They're very, very close to pulling the trigger on this. I mean, pardon the pun, but they're very close to actually executing. And you know, once T-Mobile goes, the rest of them will go. It's pretty amazing. This is an opportunity for us to bring not just to save 22 lives or at least a fraction of that, but to actually bring change to the entire Veterans Affairs system. You're not going to get that kind of a chance in your lifetime, I can promise you. Well, here it is. Don't be that guy or girl that just sits there and goes, oh yeah, that's a great idea, and you don't get online and go to helptovets.com and sign the petition and then share it with somebody. Please don't be that guy or girl, all right?
Absolutely.
I don't want to know you.
It's pretty much. I signed it myself. Took me less than 5 minutes. I told Mr. Boyds, Stough, come on the show, talk about it, because for me, I'm a veteran. You know, people are dying daily, and it's becoming to a point. It's become common, you know, and the PTSD. I tell people all the time that is something that I pray that epidemic will be canceled. Because PTSD is pretty much in some of our workforce people today. There are police officers who are on PTSD. There are people who work at cell phone carriers that have PTSD. There's doctors, nurses. There is people who are teachers that may be on PTSD, firefighters, and they need certain things to calm them down because they've seen way too much. And they can't gravitate, because you can't really tell a young person who's been 19, 20 years old, I'm going to send you overseas. You're going to see something that's going to change your whole life around. I'm going to bring you back home, and I'm going to push you out to society and say, you know what, now work it. That's hard.
Yeah, and shame on the VA for not automatically connecting these people with resources. But you realize that the reason they're not connecting them with those resources is because they haven't organize themselves to be able to extend those resources to these people in an efficient manner. Why? It's not that they don't have the money. $1.8 billion. That's going to go up 6 to 10% this year. Okay? We're talking about close to $2 billion, and they can't extend services to the right people. You know, this apathy is just got to end. They don't exist to serve themselves. They exist to serve the veterans. And quite frankly, our country ought to have a slightly higher regard for veterans. And PTSD, all these other things, you bring up a really important point, which is that the Veterans Crisis Line is not just a suicide prevention line. It's actually an onboarding mechanism. It means when you go to the Veterans Crisis Line, now you're exposed to resources that you didn't know existed. Let's put that in cell phones. Let's put that in people's fingertips, rather than expecting them to remember it or have the card in their wallet. How ridiculous. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? Eventually, we're going to talk to these marketing people at the VA and get them fired. That's another objective.
Somebody's going to get fired.
Wasting taxpayer money. But you know, I appreciate that you brought me here today. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody. It really does mean a lot. And when we get this done, I hope that everybody watching this and everybody who signs the petition feels a sense of pride that you actually took meaningful action, and you've saved not a few. You've saved thousands of lives a year. It's a big deal.
Amen. Amen. So SB Revenue, where do you want to take your business, what God has given you?
I think God has given me ability. You know, man, I had the most inspiring conversation I've ever had with anybody, and it lit a fire in me. This is yesterday. A very nice lady asked me to come up to St. George and help with, I work with a lot of nonprofits especially, but they needed to raise money in order to host an exhibit that's coming through. And I said, you know, how much? And so they said, well, they only needed about $60,000. Well, their operating expenses are about $100,000, and that's not very hard to raise. $100,000 isn't that big of a deal. 150, 160, 200, that's not that big of a deal. But you know, what I do is create awareness. I tell people, stop making decisions. Please, do yourself a favor. Because no matter where you are at the process, if you haven't really laid the groundwork and created the requisite awareness in your business, in your nonprofit, in your personal life, if you don't know who you're connected to, how those people can help you, how you can help them, if you don't know what opportunities you have around you that don't cost you anything to leverage, then you're necessarily doing yourself a huge disservice. Within just a couple of weeks now, we've moved them from where they thought they were getting anywhere between $60,000 and $150,000. It's going to be more like 200 to 300. I
Wow.
suspect that we're probably looking at more like $500,000 in revenue. And she called me, and she said, because now we're actually graduating this whole matter. I mean, I'm going to talk to the mayor of the town, and she asked me, the mayor of the town asked me yesterday, she goes, listen, we're divided, and we can't get our stuff together. We don't have a long-term plan. Can you help? I said, absolutely.
Amen.
And is that me or is that God? I mean, trust me, it ain't me. It ain't me. I just keep saying yes, and have faith that I can do the thing that I know I can do, that God has prepared me for it. Anyway, she said to me, she goes, I think this is your calling. She says, I think there's so many of these small towns that are dying, that the people in them are dying. Their economies are sinking. There are no jobs. This is your passion. I can see it in you. This is what you're meant to do. And I mean, I had to sit with that for a minute, But really, that is it. If you're a business or a nonprofit, I mean, look, I'm not free, okay? But I'm not that expensive either. I know what I'm worth it, okay? And if I can bring my skills to bear for your organization or your business, I'd love to be able to do it. Okay, so that's espyrevenue.com, ESPY revenue.com.
Got it. So everybody's out there who needs some help, trust me, you want to talk to Mr. Boyd Stough. For me, I've always, I like talking to interesting people because that's the kind of guy I am. You never know. The Logan Powell Show can't be nationwide, worldwide on a McDonald's budget. Okay. Help out half y'all. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You can't talk about you nationwide, worldwide with a McDonald's budget, and you want the Lord to work, and all thy getting get understanding. Yeah, I got my degree. I got my stuff. I'm real smart. But God said you need to get smarter. And getting smarter is getting knowledge. That's why I brought him here on the show to educate y'all, is that it's not about black, it's not about white, it's not about Hispanic, Asian. I'm telling you, I get the right people here on the show because we're connected military-wise. That's all it is, a band of brothers. Band of brothers and sisters who's willing to help one another. So that's my brother. I want to see him grow because once I see him on another network and show, I'm saying, that's my brother, man. He was on my show. He's blowing up. And he's going to help other people. So that's all the time I got. My name is Calvin Lowe, the Logan Power Show with the one and only Mr. Boyd Stough in the building. We thank y'all. We appreciate you. And we will see you on next week.